We all here?
I think so.
Okay, great. It looks like the time is approximately 7:01 in the p.m. and the May 28th, 2020 Farragut Board Mayor and Alderman meeting will now come to order. Tonight we're again operating on Governor Lee's Executive Order number 16/34 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Executive Order 16 concerning electronic meetings has been extended by Executive Order number 34 until 11:59 p.m. Central Daylight Time on June 30th, 2020, which at that time it will expire. In accordance with the Executive Order, live access to the virtual meeting is made available through Charter Channel 193 or TDS Channel 3. During this period of time, all citizen agenda or forum comments and questions, along with a name and an address, should be emailed to comments@townoffarragut.org and should have been received by 12 p.m. today in order to be included in the record of the meeting tonight. All Farragut Board Mayor and Alderman meetings will be public notice per Tennessee state law. They will also be recorded and can be viewed later on Town of Farragut's YouTube channel. Pursuant to the Governor's Executive Order, all votes taken tonight will be by roll call vote. I will now ask the Town Recorder to take our attendance roll call for a quorum.
All right, Alderman Burnett is out tonight. So my first one is Alderman Meyer.
Alderman Meyer, present.
Alderman Pinchot.
Alderman Pinchot, present.
Alderman Pavlin.
Alderman Pavlin, present.
Mayor Williams.
Present. Okay, we should have the press, and possibly Shopper.
Yes, sir. We have Michelle Hollenhead and Marty Hagan on the line.
Okay, any other?
We have some Joe LaCroix. He's going to be with us for the IT information, as well as Craig Razor, who's with SH Data.
Okay, great. Okay, approval agenda. I'll ask for a motion to approve the May 28, 2020 agenda as stated.
Mayor Williams, may I make an amendment to the agenda? Alderman Meyer has to cut out around 7:45, and I think it's important that we talk about the budget with as many people present as possible. Can we move items at least 6A, if not 6A and 6B, to ahead of items 5A and B, the business items?
I second the Vice Mayor's proposal. Alderman Meyer.
That's my motion.
Well, a motion and a second. Need a roll call on that, please.
Alderman Meyer.
Alderman Meyer, yes.
Alderman Pinchot.
Yes.
Alderman Pavlin.
Yes.
Mayor Williams.
Yes. Okay. Then we need to move on to approval of minutes.
Alderman Pavlin, move to approve.
Okay.
Alderman Meyer, second.
Okay. Now ask for a roll call vote on that.
Alderman Meyer.
Alderman Meyer, yes.
Alderman Pinchot.
Alderman Pinchot, yes.
Alderman Pavlin.
Alderman Pavlin, yes.
Mayor Williams.
Mayor Williams, yes. Let the record show that the May 14th, 2020 minutes have been approved and will be recorded as official minutes of the meeting. This will be the mayor's report. I want to start out by thanking all of our Farragut business owners who have geared up on short notice for the Phase 1 reopening. Also want to thank all the residents for their continued support of our small businesses that support you. And again, I urge everyone to stay with the physical distancing and the face mask when shopping in our businesses. Next will be an announcement for the folks who may not be aware of the situation with our annual 4th of July event. And I'll now yield the floor to Sue Stool, our Parks and Recreation Director, for her report.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. This year, unfortunately, we've had to cancel our parade due to concerns about social distancing and crowds. So we are proposing an alternate event called Festive Fourth at Home in place of our parade. We are asking residents to decorate their yards, trucks, cars, whatever, or dress up in patriotic dress, or host a socially distanced get-together on their front yard in order to celebrate the holiday. We would love it if the community would do this during the normal parade time of 9:30 to 11 on July 4th. We will encourage others to do a drive-by or a walk or a bicycle ride to view the decorations. Businesses are invited to join in the fun also. What we'd like is for people to notify us in advance if they plan to participate, so staff can put together a list and a map to post on our websites. You can find that information of where to send that by email on our social media or website. Our Parks and Recreation staff will also go out and film on Friday, July 3rd to use as a promotion, and we'll do a Facebook Live update on Saturday during the event. We are working with the City of Knoxville. They are doing a similar program in the afternoon of July 4th, and I'm hoping we will be able to do some cross-promotion. So I hope everyone will consider it, and we'll have a big party in our yards.
Okay, thank you, Sue, and move on to the report by Vice Mayor Pavlik, please.
I have nothing to report, thank you.
Okay, then if that's the case, we're going to move on, and we're going to just go straight to past our business items and go straight to ordinance. We have 2 ordinances to review tonight, and we'll start out with the public hearing on the first reading of Ordinance 20-07. It's an ordinance to establish fiscal year 2021 budget for the General Fund, State Street Aid Fund, Capital Investment Fund, ADA Fund, Equipment Replacement Fund, Tourism Fund, and Insurance Fund budgets for the town of Farragut, Tennessee for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2020 and ending July 30th, 2021.
Well, Mayor, thank you very much. This is David Smoke, and I'm just appreciative of all the efforts that all of our board members and all of our staff have put into this budget for this year. This has certainly been a budget unlike any other. We started out in our normal processes of working on our strategic plan, getting with our departments, working with the Board of Mayor and Aldermen on your priorities. Had a good initial workshop where everything was looking well, looking like revenues and expenditures were right in line with normal years. And then COVID-19 hit, and we had to really jump back and reassess everything that we were doing over the last couple of months. And so this budget is going to be extremely conservative. We have ratcheted back our revenue expectations for next year. We have dialed back also our expenditures for next year in line with keeping all of our service levels the same, if at all possible, with what we've had to take on as well, and I'll get into that in part of our discussion. The first thing that we do every year after we've had our priorities is we look at the revenues. Obviously, that's where you start with. What are we going to bring in from the town? What do we have to work with in order to operate efficiently? And when we first got together on March 12th, we were looking at revenues of around $12.7 million. Obviously, that was because we still had pretty strong sales tax revenues, and those sales tax revenues with COVID-19, we've had to ratchet those back quite a bit. On your chart before you, the green line, the kind of bold green line, is where we are currently, and this kind of tracks with where we've been over the last few years. And what we did, though, is that we were about flat for the year compared to last year, and we took April, May, and June, and we really dialed back those numbers. Now, we just received our April sales tax revenues from the state, and they actually came in quite a bit higher than we had originally anticipated. So that's a good thing. But when I say April revenues, that's actually going to be March, the month of March. So we're actually kind of a month behind. So really the worst of it is what we should see next month when everything was shut down. We have not received those numbers yet. So that's something that we are certainly looking forward to. But we have looked at our revenue estimates for local sales tax to go from around 6.3 million is what we had budgeted this year to right at 5.9 million for the end of this current fiscal year. And that is what we are projecting for next fiscal year as well, a flat budget. In fact, I was on a call yesterday listening to the State Funding Board, which is made up of a lot of economists, Dr. Bill Fox from UT. We've got, they had a Federal Reserve economist, they had one from ETSU, the Department of Revenue for the state, and they all were pretty consistent in looking at more of a flat budget for next year. Some even were a little more pessimistic on maybe 1 or 2% lower for the state in general. But I think from a local standpoint, having a flat budget, I think we're going to, hopefully have a very conservative, but able to get through this next year, depending on how quickly the economy turns back around. So with local sales tax, we also receive state sales tax. State sales tax is our second largest revenue source. And with state sales tax, this is based on population. We get so much per person for the town, but that per person number comes from sales taxes that the state receives, and they remit a portion back to the town. So if you look at your chart, we this year, currently in the FY20 fiscal year, we're supposed to receive around $142 per person overall, and 104 of that goes to the general fund, and then the remainder goes to the State Street Aid Fund to resurface our roads. And I'll get into that in a few minutes. We just got numbers which are not reflected in the current budget that you have now from the state that shows they're estimating now those numbers to be down to about $131 per person. So that's around $187,000 hit to the general fund from a revenue standpoint. Be a little over $100,000 as well to the State Street Aid Fund. So again, when we get into second reading, we'll need to make those adjustments to the budget, but we just received those in the last day or two. Moving on to the hall income tax. This is a tax that's based on the income from investment income for individuals that live in our community. The state receives a portion, we receive a portion. The last few years has been very good to the town of Farragut when it comes to hall income tax. In fact, without the hall income tax this year, our numbers would look a lot worse when it comes to the end of year projections for our revenues. We've always budgeted this very conservatively because we want to make sure that we have enough dollars coming in to cover these costs. And also the hall tax is starting to go away. We have 2 more years of receiving it. And so we want to make sure as it goes down that we're not overemphasizing what we're going to get in our budget. So we've budgeted for $400,000 in next year in the FY 2021 budget in hall tax. The wholesale beer, liquor, and mixed drink tax is another pretty good tax for the town, at least from a revenue standpoint. Again, with everything that we're going through right now, the state of Tennessee made this comment yesterday that the mixed drink tax, they anticipate for the month of April, when we get those numbers, to be 0. And part of the reason for that is because when even restaurants are doing their mixed drinks out the door, the tax does not allow for you to get those monies out the door, only if they're served in the store. So that also means that we will probably be getting close to 0, depending on what happens for next month as well in mixed drink tax. We also have the wholesale beer and the wholesale liquor tax. Those have historically been rather stable type of taxes that we receive. We have ratcheted those back just a little bit, just to be conservative, to make sure that we have enough money again if restaurants can't come back as quickly, things like that, that we have a conservative budget in place to make up for that. Our intergovernmental fees and taxes really made up a lot from cable TV franchise and TVA gross receipts. Again, this has been a very stable tax base for us as well and revenue source. We again anticipate just a slight decline next year, with more people going to satellite and in different versions of how they get their television nowadays, I think this is something that in the future we'll have to look at and see whether or not this will in fact increase any more than what it is. But overall, it's been a very stable source for the town for several years, and we anticipate getting around $677,000 in the FY21 budget. We also have building permit and license revenue. So this is very much fluctuates based on the economy and based on where we're at right now. You can see the last couple of years we've had some good building activity in the town. We've had good commercial growth, and when you have good commercial growth, that tends to give you higher revenue sources, just because those permits are a little more expensive, they're a little more costly, and most of our fees are based off of value of construction. Our estimated end of year for this year for FY20 is $381,000. We have had a good number of homes that are still being built, but we haven't had as much commercial this year, so that's part of the reason for that. And we certainly don't anticipate getting a lot of new commercial next year. There may be possibilities for some projects that were already in the works, but with everything going on right now, I think a conservative approach would be where we have our budget revenues estimated at around $257,000 for FY 2021. So if you look at our overall general fund revenue sources, the local sales tax makes up the bulk of that at 54%, with our state sales tax making up 19%, and then a number of other taxes filling out the gap. So we truly are dependent on sales tax, and how well our economy does is how well the town of Farragut does. So we obviously hope that this COVID-19 situation and our economy starts building back sooner rather than later. But I've seen all sorts of estimates from all these economists that talk about a quick V where it comes back quickly, and some are more like a Nike swoosh, that it comes back a little bit and then just takes a while to get back to where we were just 6 to 12 months ago. When we look at the other side of the coin, it's our general fund expenditures. So when I got with the department heads back in March, they gave me their initial budgets of what they were needing for next year. After we reassessed where we were at, we cut around $300,000 out of this year's budget in order to make sure we had enough to get through the FY20 fiscal year. And then I asked them to cut another $300,000 out of next year's budget because we desperately needed some new positions in order to add to some things that we've already included in our operations. And so with that, we were able to get our revenue and, our expenditures at $7,286,228 for next year. That represents a 2.6% increase from our budget of this past year. But again, we're looking at adding on services with community center, where we've added on different things with the public works department to have to maintain. And also our engineering department has many projects going on, and we're looking at a position there to help get us through these large number of projects that we have going on right now. So those are all the added expenses that we were able to add back to the budget to keep it as flat as possible heading in from FY20 to FY2021. And I can go into as much detail as the board needs me to, but I think I'll just take a pause for a second and just ask if there's any questions about the general fund in general before I move on to the other funds that we have.
David, can you go back quickly and just tell me the state sales tax, what was it last year and what is it this year per person?
Yes, ma'am. So it is, and Alice probably has that slide we can bring back up for you too, but the state sales tax was $142.50 per person in the current fiscal year, going down to $131 per person for next year.
Okay.
Now, you have to break that down with $104 going to the general fund, and then next year it looks like $98 to go to the general fund. And so those were those numbers I mentioned that we will be reducing around $187,000 in projected revenues from the state sales tax next year for the general fund.
Okay, that's all I needed.
Okay.
Alderman Meyer?
No questions so far. I like it.
Okay, Alderman Pinchuk?
I have no further questions.
Okay, Mayor has none either, so David, you can proceed.
Okay, thank you. Next up is our tourism fund, and this is a new fund for the town this year. Obviously, we have started our tourism program a couple of years ago. The board, which you'll be acting on and talking about again tonight, implemented a occupancy tax earlier this year. We were talking about delaying that for 3 months, and so we have amended our budget based on the fact that we would not start an occupancy tax until September 1st of this year. So that would bring in revenues totaling $226,000 and expenditures totaling $213,000 to have a balanced budget. So again, this is we're adding, different elements that we can. We've cut back in different areas that we originally had planned, but we believe this will be a good budget for our tourism department to get operated on this fiscal year. Our next program and fund is the Capital Investment Program. This is where we have all of our large projects, anything over $25,000. That is big projects that are going to take a good amount of time to build or construct. Could be even large pieces of equipment that are very expensive. So in this case, for the FY 2021 year, which is the only year that we actually budget dollars, the remaining years are all planning year documents to make sure we have enough dollars allocated in future years to be able to handle all those projects. But at this year's projects, we have 2 in general projects, which is Watt Road Sidewalk and Grigsby Chapel pedestrian crossing. We have $130,000 currently in the budget that will roll over and move into next year's budget. So we're adding $100,000 to make sure we can do that entire project for next year. Also, we have Smith Road Sidewalk, which is a project that has been designed. It's just ready for construction when we get started, and that's also been put in the budget at $650,000. We don't have any parks projects planned for next year because, frankly, we have a large one going on right now, which is going to take us a while to get through. I know Sue and Daryl are probably happy about that, but so we're not planning anything next year. However, in the next 5 years, we do have a lot of replacement type of equipment. We have some field reconstructions that we need to do, replacement of turf at one of our Mayor Bob Leonard Park fields, and also redoing our Anchor Park playground. It's going to reach its useful life soon, so we're going to need to talk about replacing that playground. So, but in this year's budget for FY 2021, there's no park projects in the immediate fiscal year. And then finally, we have engineering projects for next year. And those engineering projects, the main one we have is stormwater improvements. We have begun many stormwater assessments at this point. We know some different projects we need to get started on, and I know Town Engineer Daryl Smith's been working on those with his staff. And next year we have $350,000 to go back toward those projects to continue replacing pipes that need to be replaced and repairing things that we need to get done. Overall, when you look at the funding sources for these projects, we're transferring $100,000 from the general fund. We anticipate receiving a FEMA reimbursement from stormwater related activities from last year in the FY21 budget of $272,980. And then we anticipate taking CIP reserves of $707,000 to give us an available fund balance of $255,000 at the end of FY 2021. Now, one of the things that we have already applied for, which the board asked for last meeting, was a resolution to the state to receive monies to help us with our capital project on Virtue Road. So assuming that we receive those monies, that would be an additional $536,000 that would go to the bottom line of the CIP and help raise that available fund balance as soon as we get those funds in. So let me pause for a second as well on CIP to see if anybody has any comments, questions, concerns, anything on the CIP.
Alderman Palva?
Yes. When do we expect to hear back from the state on that funding?
Vice Mayor, I'm not sure. We've sent everything to the state, so it's just a matter of time. I have a feeling they're going to want to get these things processed as quickly as they can. That money, though, would not be available till after July 1st. That's in the next fiscal year budget. So I think our main goal is, can we at least get approved for that before July 1st so we know it's available? That way we can bid the project out and be ready to go as soon as July 1st hits.
Okay, and that would be nice because that is awfully low fund balance. That's a little unnerving to me. So anything that helps pad that a little bit more would be very much appreciated. That's all I had.
Alderman Meyer,
No further comments.
Alderman Pinchot.
I have no further comments.
The mayor does not have any comments as well, so David, you can move on again.
Okay. Our next fund is the State Street Aid Fund, and the State Street Aid Fund is obviously where we do a lot of our resurfacing projects. In fact, you just approved a contract last meeting for resurfacing on Smith Road and kind of some areas around the Smith Road, Grigsby Chapel area. This next year, we anticipate receiving revenues of $850,000. Now, this is as of what we sent you in the budget. I told you we just received the state numbers back for next year, which are going to reduce those revenues by about $118,000. So instead of the $850,000, we're looking more in the range of $732,000, I think. We have, at the end of this year, FY20, we have $1.3 million in fund balance in State Street Aid Fund. And so what I anticipate going into next year is probably another reduction in the fund balance to make up for what we need to get done for our streets. And then we can reassess this in FY 2022 budget year to determine if we have then more monies from the general fund that we can allocate to the State Street Aid Fund if we need to. And it really comes down to, is the state going to then get back up again in FY 2022 to give us more money out of the state shared revenue? As sales taxes increase, then those dollars should increase as well. But we do have quite a bit of projects. In fact, tonight on one of your agenda items is another project to go along with what we just did for resurfacing with curb ramp improvements as well for ADA. Also, with the ADA Capital Projects Fund, we have quite a few projects that we've been able to already accomplish with the ADA Fund. And like I just mentioned, we have a project tonight on your agenda that is also to help with ADA accessibility for many curb ramps along Smith Road and Grigsby Chapel. So we are allocating $50,000 from the general fund to the ADA Capital Projects Fund for next year. And we need to get a fund balance built up there for when we do have projects, again, just out of this fund that we'll pay for. And these things could be any kind of sidewalk repairs, curb ramp repairs, things here at Town Hall, things at the community center, whatever it may be that we need to work on. We have a really large list to work on over the next 30 years, but we've made a good progress so far, and we're continuing to make progress in other funds. So we wanted to ratchet that back just a little bit, since we're obviously having a time frame we need to really take a pause in all the different funding mechanisms that we use. Our next fund is the Equipment Replacement Fund, and this is where we purchase all of our vehicles, as well as, say, lawn tractors and equipment for public works. This year, we're looking at transferring $157,500 from the general fund into the Equipment Replacement Fund. And we have expenditures of $208,000 planned for next year. We have let's see, I'm looking at it right now. We have a skid steer loader. We have a couple of mowers or actually 3 mowers that Public Works needs for their operations, as well as 1 additional vehicle for next year. So at the ending fund balance for FY 2021, we will be at $891,353 in the Equipment Replacement Fund. Our final fund to discuss tonight is the Insurance Fund. And the Insurance Fund is a fund that we have had for several years for a closed retirement account for just a few employees are left in it. We have not had to put, as you can see, actually no money in it for the last several years. It's fully funded, and we do not anticipate having to put any in there next year. So With that, we'll have an ending fund balance of $105,972 in the insurance fund. And lastly, we just want to give you a snapshot of where we believe our fund balances will be for all of our funds at the end of FY20 that we're in currently. You can see the general fund is obviously our largest fund at $16.6 million, and then State Street Aid Fund at $1.3, Equipment Fund at $934, and then our ADA Capital Fund, which has $1,500 now. We hope to get around $51,500 at the end of next year, and then our insurance fund at $105,372. So with that, Mayor and Board, I believe we do have a balanced budget. I believe it's conservative. We are being able to keep all of our services intact for this year and move forward into the next fiscal year. So with that, I'd be happy to try to answer any questions, things I didn't cover.
I'm going to go ahead and make an motion to approve Ordinance 20-07 on first reading to adopt the annual budget for the town of Farragut, Tennessee for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2020 and ending June 30th, 2021.
Alderman Meyer, second.
Okay, with a motion and a second, I think we pretty well covered discussion.
I have one thing I want to add.
Okay.
Sorry, everyone. This is something that I've brought up before, and first off, I want to thank everyone, all of our wonderful personnel for working so hard to go back and look through the budget to really pinch our pennies. It was important and hard work. We gave up a lot of the training, which we all value as board members, value you all getting the training that you need, the opportunities to go and find out the new things that are happening. And I'm sad to see that, but under these circumstances, we kind of all had to tighten our belts. But there's one thing that I think is missing from the budget that we really need to think about what we want to do with, and I think we need to do an economic development strategic plan. We have a lot of working parts now. We have what's going on in our staff level with Trevor and with Carl as far as reaching out to businesses when they're beginning their process. We have Shop Farragut, we have Visit Farragut, we have the Farragut West Knox Chamber of Commerce, and they all have their individual things, but we haven't quite figured out how to coordinate to understand what we may be missing, because really all of these parts are supposed to work together to help our existing businesses and to recruit and attract new businesses. And I think it would be very helpful to have someone outside of us bring us together, all of these different boards, and at least have representatives from each of the boards to more solidify an economic development strategic plan going forward. I've spoken to David about it. He thinks that we probably need to put about $25,000 towards it, and I wanted to see where you guys were on this.
This is Alderman Meyer. I think it's a phenomenal idea. I know just for my own purposes, I still get kind of confused over which one of the boards or which one of the entities are supposed to be building tourism and which one's supposed to be building tax revenue with the businesses, and you got the Farragut Business Alliance, and you got our tourism department. And for me personally, I want to make sure that we don't have duplication of efforts, and I think that this plan could help solidify and make sure that we're not double dipping in expenses. I would also, obviously, I have a passion for sports tourism, and I would love to have a dialogue like that on that topic with all those different boards. So I think it's a great idea.
Alderman Pinchot?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea as well. I think, of course, this is the first I've heard of Vice Mayor Publin's idea. I'd like to take us up at a workshop and make sure we spend some time on it. I'm not sure we come up with the number $25,000. That may be substantial and may not. I just like to have some dialogue, and I don't think this is the right time to do that. But I'm for it. I just want to spend more time discussing it. So I'd like to see a workshop on it. Possibly we can find $25,000 or whatever it take down the road to do this.
Okay,
That's all I've got.
thank you, Alderman Pinchot. I have to agree with him on that myself, that we workshop this. I think it's a great idea from Vice Mayor Pavlin. I do believe we do need to workshop it because there's bringing it all together with having the right person is going to be the key. And I think we need to really kind of all have some input on that with a little bit of thought instead of just throwing it out here right now and not really having any thought about it. So again, I think it's a great idea. So
Okay, can I just add one last item, because this, and I agree with you, I'm fine, we can do a budget amendment after we've worked through it. This was something I mentioned last year about this time when we were going through our workshops last year, that I said we hadn't got all of our ducks in a row yet. We were still working on getting our staff up and running, at least our inspection staff running on the computer out in the field, being able to do that work. But I had mentioned it at that point that we really need to have a economic development strategic plan and put that in the back of your head. So this, just to remind you, this is not a new thing that I'm talking about. This has been something I've been talking about for a while, but I have no problem. I think sooner than later, because we really need to understand where we're at and how we're going to start attracting new businesses. And it's not something we need to drag our feet on. But I'm fine with having a workshop and doing a budget amendment if that's how everybody else wants to proceed. David, do you have any input as to this path we're choosing?
Well, I mean, obviously, if the board felt comfortable, you could go ahead and put the money in the budget now during the budget process. And then when we get to, if you decide you don't want to do it, then you don't have to do it. Or if you decide to do it, then obviously we have the money there and available to go ahead with the process and with the program. If it's something you want to wait on and workshop first, then we're probably looking at next fiscal year, or we would, at some point during next fiscal year, we would come back and amend the budget to put money in to pay for a consultant to do the work. So it's just how you want to approach it. Either way is fine.
To Alderman Meyer, I'm more comfortable with doing the workshop also and just doing a budget amendment. Because I would like to know more about the $25,000 also. And I'm assuming you kind of hit the nail on the head, David. It's most likely for consulting, but you know, I think we can come together and set good expectations as a group on what we're wanting out of this. And so I personally don't have a problem with an amendment to a budget, but it's just me.
Alderman Pinchot.
I'm still for having a workshop first. I'm all for this. I agree totally with the idea. It's just that I haven't had a chance to think about it and talk to anybody about it. And I don't know if $25,000 is the right amount or if it's $50,000 or whatever we're going to need. So I'm all for it. I just want to take some time and have our discussion and work through it. But I think apparently Alderman Meyer's going to have to leave here pretty soon, and I don't want to slow this process down. I really would like to get this approved.
Okay, and I'm fine by that. That's we should know exactly what we're looking for, and we should all be on the same. So I'm good.
Okay, with the motion is second, I'll ask county recorder for a roll call vote now.
Alderman Meyer.
Alderman Meyer, yes.
Alderman Pinchot.
Yes.
Alderman Pavlin.
Alderman Pavlin, yes.
Mayor Williams.
Mayor Williams, yes. Let the record show that ordinance 20-7 has been approved on the first reading with unanimous vote. Okay, we're going to move on to the next ordinance item, and that will be the public hearing on the second reading of ordinance 20-05, Ordinance to amend Title 5, Chapter 1, Hotel Motel Tax by amending the effective date of Ordinance 12-01.
Mayor, there are no changes to this ordinance at this time. In effect, Ordinance 2005 would push out the effective date of the occupancy tax from June 1st, September 1st. It still remains at 3%, but that's the only differences is the anticipated start date of the occupancy tax. And I'd be happy to try to answer any questions.
Okay, I'll now ask for a motion.
I'm going to move to approve ordinance 20-05 on second and final reading.
Alderman Pinchot seconds.
Okay, with motion and second, I'll now ask for town recorder to read in, well, no citizens' comments, so there's nothing to read in. I guess we'll need a roll call. Vote, please.
Alderman Pinchot.
Yes.
Alderman Povlin.
Yes.
Alderman Meyer.
Alderman Meyer, yes.
Mayor Williams.
Mayor Williams, yes. Let the record show ordinance 20-05 has been approved on the second reading unanimously. Okay, we will now go back to our item. And
Mayor, this is Alderman Meyer. Mr. Mayor, Alderman Meyer, I just want to thank everyone for being gracious and allowing us to change the agenda, and I apologize that I have a work commitment that's come up that's emergent. So thank you, everybody, for adjusting the agenda. I appreciate it.
yes, sir, those
Thank you,
things happen.
Alderman Meyer.
Thank you.
Okay, first business item will be approval of contract for information technology managed service provider.
Yes, sir. The purpose of this agenda item is to consider awarding a contract for a vendor to perform as an information technology managed services provider to include hosting of servers, data storage, data retention, recovery, security infrastructure, voice over IP phones, and networking services. And this is not a comprehensive list. The town has had a managed service provider for many years with contracts negotiated every 3 to 5 years. In this contract cycle, the town decided to open the contract to bidding out to outside vendors. The information technology manager published a request for proposals on October 15th, 2019 to solicit proposals for a managed services provider. The provider would work with the town of Farragut in critical roles related to several distinct facets of the information technology infrastructure. The town also asked the vendor to discuss a range of issues in detail and to submit their proposals by November 22nd. Currently, the town is partnered with C-Spire, a vendor that has held the role of the provider for the town for many years. The contract with C-Spire has expired, but we have been having an ongoing relationship that is set forth in the contract on a month-to-month basis. 8 vendors attended the mandatory pre-bid meeting to discuss requirements and answer questions pertaining to the proposals that were submitted. 5 vendors submitted proposals for the evaluation. Through the evaluation process, 2 vendors provided excellent proposals, and they were clearly superior to the other proposals, yet they were somewhat divergent in their delivery models. By applying the town's unique set of requirements, staff has determined that the appropriate vendor is SH Data Technologies. It's a 36-month contract beginning May 29, 2020. With SH Data, it will cost approximately $112,000 for each fiscal year 21, 22, and 23. In fiscal year 2019, the managed services and phone maintenance costs were $137,000. The integration of the data maintenance and the cloud-based phone system will cost less than what the town is currently paying. And so the motion is to approve the contract for information technology management with SH Data. And I have Joe LaCroix, who's our IT manager, and Craig Racer, who's with SH Data, on the line if there are specific questions.
I'll need a motion.
I'm going to move to approve the contract with SH Data Technologies for information technology managed service.
This Alderman Pinchot, can I second it?
Okay, in that case, is anyone got any questions for either party?
I have.
This Alderman Pinchot?
I'm sorry.
I do.
Okay, you're recognized.
Me or Louise?
You.
Okay. First question I have is on the tentative schedule on page 22. I'm just curious. It looked like the plan was to have this brought to the board in December of last year. I'm just wondering why it's not coming to us. Why it's coming to us now? Was there issues? Were there problems? Something we need to be aware of, or were there just delays in gathering information and wanting to make the proposal?
No, the largest delay was the getting the community center online with the rest of our organization. That was kind of when we started having to do the phones and all the AV equipment and all that. So Joe was involved in that. And so since we had an ongoing contract with Ceasefire month to month, it allowed us to continue that while we implemented the community center into our system. And that way we had a fluid contractor that we've had who knows the ins and outs of our system, and it was just we felt like it was an easier transition to do the community center first, and then look at this evaluation of the provider.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you. My other question has to do with the contracted amount. It's $112,182 per year, and when you total up the monthly cost, I see that's where that number came from. But there's also a one-time setup fee of $16,450, which I don't see in this proposal. Am I missing something?
No, we're actually going to pull that from we are going to in this is our phone system as well. And we had budgeted a lump sum amount for our phone systems. Well, in doing this proposal, we have a proposal in front of us that's actually cheaper than what we're doing right now. So instead of we don't have the money we have to spend, so we're going to pull that one-time monies out of the original phone budget. But for our year-to-year cost, it's less than what we're doing now.
I understand. Thank you for that explanation. That's all I have.
Vice Mayor Pavlin?
I guess what my question is, apparently there's a phase 1 and a phase 2. Can you explain to me what the phase 1, if you look on page 23, it says there's a phase 1 will include design of new, whatever AD, domain spaces, DNS routing, firewall specification, and then phase 2 shall include the management, internal, external maintenance, and support of the town's information technology, data, and infrastructure. And they're giving us a monthly bill of about $9,000. Is that when they move over? Is there stuff? Can you explain to me what phase 1 and phase 2 are?
I'm going to pass that one to Joe because I'm not for sure.
Hi, Joe LaCroix, IT manager. So yes, phase 1 is going to be moving all of our existing data infrastructure, servers, the phone system, design work, bringing that all into and underneath SH Data's umbrella. And then phase 2 will be the ongoing month-to-month support and support from SH Data for what we have. And then going forward, the phase 2 would also include any upgrades or changes that we would make along the way.
How long will phase 1 take?
Well, talking with Craig, you know, we don't want to rush it, but the first piece is we're going to move servers over and put in phone systems. So the phone systems is the #1 priority. We're going to start working on that as soon as the contract is signed. We can probably start implementing within weeks of that. Moving the servers over from our current vendor to the new vendor will be in the couple weeks range, up to a month. And then at that point, we can we roll into phase 2. I'm going to venture to say a month, 4 weeks to 6 weeks for the entire phase 1 piece to be done, completed.
All right. And I guess I know maybe I'm being thick here, But so we have a monthly bill of 9,000, whatever it is. And so that phase one, that bill, that amount covers the phase one and into phase two. Is that correct?
Well, there's a fee for implementation. There's that 17,000 that Mr. Pinchuk talked
Okay.
about. But then the monthly fee would begin as soon as we sign the contract.
Okay. All right. And any upgrades, is that part of this base fee, or will that be an additional amount?
And the quick answer is yes and no. So yes, upgrades on, software upgrades as they come along will be covered. But if we do a major change to our system, then there would be fees associated for that. For example, let's say we wanted to add an additional SQL server or an additional service that we haven't provided. There would be additional fees for that. But the ongoing upgrade of, say, for Windows Server 2012 to 2016, that's all covered on SH Data's side. They're the ones providing that equipment. We just have to work it out with them.
Okay, and I guess the question, this is for Allison. If this is extra monies, is it something where we're just kind of moving something internally, or is this something going to be like a budget amendment where we're going to have to pull more money from general fund for it?
For which part? I'm sorry.
If there's any upgrades that are outside of the contract.
No, they have all the information of what our system is now and what we have currently. So I think in their proposal, they feel pretty confident with the equipment we have going forward. Okay. And so it'll be, if there's anything major coming up, I feel like we'll have time to plan for that and to budget for that.
Okay.
Okay. And if I could address one thing. So currently, we only own a few devices, firewalls and switches. When SH Data takes over, they're going to be purchasing 2 firewalls, and it's on their dime, and that's all covered within the cost of the cost. They're providing that. So those will be brand new. That's going to be an upgrade for us, but we won't incur any cost outside of our monthly fees. If that makes sense.
Yeah, got it. All right, that's all I had. Are we ready to vote, Mayor Williams?
I think he's muted. Let me unmute him.
Yeah, I have no questions. You covered what I was going to ask Vice Mayor Povlin, so we're good to go. And I don't see any reason for any amendments, so I'll ask the town recorder now for a roll call vote.
Alderman Pinchuk.
Yes.
Alderman Povlin.
Yes.
Mayor Williams.
Yes. Okay, let the record show that the contract has been approved as stated unanimously. Okay, next will be the approval of contract 2020-19, which is sidewalk curb ramp improvements.
Mayor, this is a follow-up to our recent approval for resurfacing that we'll be doing along Smith Road, Wrigley Chapel corridor this summer. As the town goes through and resurfaces roads, any kind of curb ramps that are on sidewalks that are along those resurfacing areas are required to be updated to the latest ADA improvements. And so we have 35 different locations along that stretch of roadway that need to be upgraded and up to today's Americans with Disabilities Act standards. We received 4 bids for this work to be done, and the low bid was from Whaley Construction with $158,963. Whaley has done several projects for the town, and they've done good work. So staff would recommend approval of contract 2020-19 to Whaley Construction.
This is Alderman Pavlin. I'm going to move to approve bids and award of contract 2020-19 to Whaley Construction for their low bid of $158,963.
This is Alderman Pinchuk, I second it.
It moves us to discussion.
I have none.
Okay. Alderman Pinchuk?
I have none.
Okay, I have none. We have a motion on the floor that's been seconded. We'll now need a roll call vote, please.
Alderman Pavlin.
Alderman Pavlin, yes.
Alderman Pinchuk.
Alderman Pinchuk, yes.
Mayor Williams.
Mayor Williams, yes. Okay, that concludes our business for tonight. We'll move on to the town administrator's report.
Mayor, thank you. Just real quick, I wanted to make sure the public knew, the town hall here has been open ever since the COVID-19 issues across the country started. But we have had our building closed for the last several weeks. This week, we reopened to appointments for those that needed to come into town hall. They could have requested a meeting with a staff member and had that meeting here at town hall. But next week, we are going to be opening town hall to the public again and the community center to the public again, so that the staff and our citizens can be able to utilize the facility as best we can under the current guidelines for Knox County. We will allow up to 30 people, I think, per room on the fields outside. Up to 50 can be in a room if they can socially distance appropriately. So the staff will be asking a lot of questions of folks that are wanting to rent some of the facilities, and knowing that things could change in the future. Some of the health department guidelines change as well. One of the good bit of news we received today was that the Knox County Clerk's office looks to be reopening on June the 8th, and so they're trying to get open about a week after we open fully here at Town Hall. So we look forward to that, and I'll be happy to try to answer any questions from the board if you have any.
Okay. Any questions?
This is Alderman Pinchuk, I have none.
I have none either.
Well, looks like we don't have a town attorney tonight to give us a report, so we will move on to citizen forum. In pursuit of the governor's executive order, we ask that all citizens' comments be emailed to comments@townoffarragut.org, which must be, along with their name and address, be received by 12 p.m. the day of the meeting to be included in the record of that night's meeting. I'll now ask the town recorder to please read any comments or questions in that we have received.
Yes, sir. Tonight we have 4. The first one's from Deborah Konopka, and she says, when I purchased my home in April of 2018, I was not aware, nor did anyone include the title agency ever say anything about a right-of-way on my property, which would allow for the installation of a cell phone tower. I did not want this tower on my property. I proposed that Verizon pay me rent of $1,500 a month as long as I continue to own this property. I've been made aware that it might be impossible to sell my house at its normal value due to the obtrusive cell tower that will be on my property. I propose that when the time comes to sell my home, that Verizon will pay the difference between the actual value without the cell tower and whatever offer I get at the time. I pay taxes on the whole entire property, including the right-of-way. I propose that Verizon pay a portion of my taxes for the area where they drilled, as well as the ugly platform on my front lawn. I nor my young adult children want to be exposed to any type of cell phone radiation that may cause harm. I propose that Verizon put up a $10 million bond in a trust for future medical expenses that may arise due to this 5G cell phone tower for any and all harm caused to myself and my family. Verizon subcontractor drilled into the water main on my front lawn in April of 2020. This caused our family to go without water for 5 hours. I had to replace the water filter in my brand new refrigerator. I would like to be reimbursed for $49.12 for the new filter. I propose that Verizon only install these 5G towers in common business areas and not residential neighborhoods. It is unfair that any homeowner in Farragut that I need to be stressed out by this whole situation and need to stand up for myself and my family. This is ridiculous, and I hope the town of Farragut can keep these towers out of our residential neighborhoods. Our second one is from Elaine Sutton. She says, I've lived here in Farragut since 1991. In lieu of the meeting tomorrow, I'm writing to continue to object to the installation of the 5G cell towers in my neighborhood until 100% safety of this radiation can be proven. I personally have spent approximately 60 hours studying this topic, and further residents have spent considerable more time than this. I'm wondering how many hours who are approving these 5G towers installation have spent studying their own safety. There is an entire document with a worldwide experts called the 5G Summit. I would ask that you all watch it and get the transcript to make the correct decision for our town. Cities across America have stopped 5G installation in their towns, as well as entire countries throughout the world who have done their research and concluded that this is very unsafe technology that will bring much disease into our life. Please step up and do the right thing to protect our health. I know many homeowners are concerned about their property values, which is a legitimate concern. I certainly would never purchase a property with a 5G cell tower on it. Yet that concern would probably not be on the top of my list if I had cancer. Our next one is Bill Harden. We, the citizens of Farragut, we have come a long way with what we're trying to do, but there is still more left to do. First off, let me say thank you, Mayor, Assistant Mayor, and Alderman for supporting the voters and the citizens of Farragut. Now is not the time to rest, but to keep letting Verizon and other contractors that they are trying to come into our neighborhood with an unsafe 5G program. None of them can tell you how safe 5G is. There have been too many studies and reports by doctors and engineers to show that 5G will do damage to the human body, not counting the thousands of poles they are going to put up in our residential neighborhoods. Now our final comment is from Mike Mitchell. He says, Mayor and Alderman, a cellular radiation baseline in Farragut must be established to make sure no home in Farragut is exposed to more than the U.S. federal limit for cellular radiation. To do this, Farragut must purchase radiation testing equipment and first establish a baseline for all existing cellular towers in Farragut. Then, as a new cell tower or antenna are installed, they must be measured. A computer database to record these tests must be created. Having more than one 5G small cell tower on a pole or on an LCUB pole should not be allowed in the town of Farragut. This may increase the radiation load beyond federal limits. While this will increase the number of poles with 5G antennas and towers, it is the only way to make sure no family is exposed to radiation in excess of federal limits. I'm concerned by last week's Farragut Planning Commission meeting. I agree with the Planning Commission that the MCI Metro application for installing more fiber optic cable should have been denied. The work to date from MasTech is unacceptable. If the actual work is done by MasTech, why isn't MasTech the applicant? It seems that having MCI Metro being the applicant provides no accountability from MasTech. Why did Mike Machka identify himself as an employee at MCI Verizon when MCI Metro was the applicant? Is this a deliberate attempt to confuse? Can Farragut require that the firm that does the work be the applicant? What bond is put up to install the fiber optic cable? Is it a sufficient based on the recent experience? From the very beginning, there has been very little accountability from NCI Verizon and its subcontractors. Time after time, they refuse to answer questions from BOMA, the Planning Commission, and Farragut residents. I think we are well past trust, but verify. We have trusted but not received verification, and results have been very bad. I asked the Board of Mayor and Aldermen to pass a resolution to request Governor Lee sign an executive order to halt the deployment of 5G facilities within the rights of ways of our local communities belonging to the public until such time as the only agency with the authority to do so, the FCC, reevaluates by an independent study the adequacy of the radio frequency emission standards and concludes on a basis of sound science that those standards and standards adopted as a result of said further study are adequate to ensure that the health of the public at large will not be adversely affected by long-term exposure to radio frequency emissions from the placement and operation of 5G wireless facilities throughout our communities. That's from Mike Mitchell.
Okay, thank you. That concludes our citizens forum for tonight, and the time is approximately 8:06. And without objection, the May 28th, 2020 Farragut Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting is now adjourned.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.